Welcome to the 31st session of Bhagavad Gita. So we covered 30 slokas from the Bhagavad Gita so far. We are going to cover the 31st sloka. So in the last class, we covered how the name lotus, the Kamala name, gained importance, right? The significance of the name Kamala. So let us recite the sloka from the last session. ब्रह्मण्याधाय कर्माणि संगं त्यक्त्वा करोति यः लिप्यतेन सपापेन पद्मपत्रमिवाम्भसा. So that explains the significance of the lotus flower named Kamala in Sanskrit and Indian languages. There are multiple names: Padma, Kamala, Neeraja, Aravind, Pankaja. So all those are different. Rajiv, Ambuja, those are all names for the same flower, lotus flower. So today we are going to talk about the 16th sloka from the same 5th chapter, the Karma Yoga chapter. So the sloka is Jnanena tu tadajnanam yesham nasitam atmanah tesham aditya vajnanam prakashayati tatparam. Jnanena tu tadajnanam yesham nasitam atmanah tesham aditya vajnanam prakashayati tatparam. So there are a few words that you would have recognized by now, right? So jnana is by knowledge. Actually, jnanena is a vibhakti pratyaya. So means by knowledge. Tu means but. Kintu parantu. In Hindi also they say kintu parantu, right? So that means but. Tat means that. See how close English and Sanskrit words are. Ajnanam is the opposite of jnanam.
Not knowledge?
Not knowledge. Yesham means Yesha. We already covered Yesha in few of the slokas. So Yesha means of those, belonging to those. Nasitam, Nashitam, Nashanam means destruction, is
Because
destroyed.
Na means not.
Yes. Atmana means
Atma is soul.
soul. So
of the soul.
of the
Is
soul.
the soul.
Right, of the soul. Tesham. Yesham is of those. Tesham is of their. Adityavat.
Sun? Because
Yeah,
Aditya,
Aditya means sun. So Adityavat means rising like the sun. Or like the rising sun. Jnanam is knowledge again. Prakashayati. Prakasha means lightness, right? Brightness. Prakashayati means disclosure. Prakashayati means brightness, or in terms of knowledge, it opens itself up. Tatparam.
Well, that means that, right?
Yeah, that means that. Param
Like
means
best or
param
ultimate?
is ultimate, right?
Paramatma.
So that ultimate goal, which is nothing but the God, right? So that is, yeah. So those are the meanings of the words. Now the meaning of the sloka itself is, surely wisdom is like the sun, revealing the supreme truth to those whose ignorance is dispelled by the knowledge of the self. So what does that mean?
So wisdom reveals the supreme truth to those who who ignores the knowledge of the self.
No, you got it exactly the opposite, right? So what this means is, for whom the wisdom shines like the sun, or rather, let us put it
Which
this way.
is clear.
Yeah, let us put it even simpler words, right? So for whom ignorance is dispelled by the knowledge of the self, for him the wisdom shines like the sun, revealing the supreme truth. That's what it means. So if a person, people born on the earth, they're ignorant, right? That is why we are born on the earth. Otherwise, we would be God. So we have, I mean, we are not totally ignorant, but to some extent we are ignorant. That is the reason why we pursue knowledge. When we attain the ultimate knowledge, then all the ignorance is dispelled. So what is that ultimate knowledge? So Krishna says, Lord Krishna in this sloka says that the ultimate knowledge, the supreme truth, is the knowledge of the self, Atma Jnanam. Right? So the knowledge of the self, the knowledge of the soul. What is self? Who are you?
Well, we're basically God.
Yeah, you are God. You are the soul. You are not the body. You are not the 2 eyes, 2 ears, 1 nose, and 1 mouth that you think you are. Right? You are actually the soul, which is an instance of the God. Right? So when you understand that concept, it is very, very hard to understand that concept. I mean, in words, you think, oh, okay, that's what it means. Okay, that's fine. But to understand means it should be programmed into your entire system. Then only you can say that you understood it, right? You just listen to something. Suppose somebody says something in Enna Pesra. What does it mean?
It sounds like Tamil.
It sounds like Tamil. So you hear that and you think you understand, because when somebody asks that question, the other person is replying saying that, oh, I said this. So then you think, oh, that's what it means. Enna pesra means, what are you talking? So that's what you think. You thought you understood the language, but you won't understand until you completely imbibe into your system what it means. Same thing with math, science, everything, right? So the teacher explains everything. You tend to understand it. You think, oh, that's what it means. Okay, that's fine. But after 1 month, there is an exam and the same question is asked. You're not able to answer. What does it mean? It means you haven't understood. You haven't understood in reality. So it did not sink in. That is the other way to put it. So the knowledge of self, that you are not the body but the soul, it is the supreme ultimate knowledge. And it is not easy to understand that knowledge. So in another sloka, actually the 7th chapter, and in the 19th sloka of the 7th chapter, Lord Krishna says this: Bahunam janmanamante jnanavanam prapadyate mame vaishyati yukteva. So this sloka goes on. But what it essentially means is that a person has to go through many, many, many births to attain the knowledge of the soul. And when he attains this knowledge of the soul, he surrenders to God. That is the ultimate surrender. Whenever you bow, whenever you do sashtanga pranamam on the floor, you're kind of surrendering, but it is not complete surrender. Just like you don't understand Enna Pesra just by listening once.
Is it like how if somebody comes to us, we say namaste, or I bow down to you, but that doesn't mean that we're going to do whatever they say.
Exactly,
like,
right?
submit to them.
Yeah, there's a guest in the house. You say namaste. Namaste means you surrender. Namaste means na mama, na aham. Neither me nor mine. Everything is yours. That's what we say. And then after just an hour or even 5-10 minutes, if there's an argument, people tend to argue. In India, a person shot his guest with a gun, with a pistol.
Why?
For whatever, they got into an argument and he shot, simply shot. I mean, how wise is that? So, so surrender, that kind of surrender is very superficial. Just like the understanding that you have of the Enna Pesra word, the phrase. This surrender that you do every day is very superficial. The ultimate surrender is when you fully realize that you are not the body but the soul. Then you will automatically surrender to the God, and that is the ultimate surrender. And to do that, one has to take many, many, many births. That is what you learned in Jataka tales, right? So we see that every Jataka tale is about the past
Life
birth, past
Buddha.
life of birth of Buddha, Gautama Buddha. So after taking so many lives, Gautama Buddha finally became Jnani, the ultimate Jnani, right? But why does one have to take so many lives? Why can't you understand it just in one life?
Well, understanding it would be difficult, and it also takes a lot of
time.
and self control, which you can't exactly achieve overnight, or even in a single.
Yeah, just like you cannot master your science textbook in one day, right? Your seventh grade or third grade, fourth grade science textbook, you cannot master it in one day, right? You need the whole year to master it. So same thing here. Yeah, you need many, many lives. Right, in one of the episodes of Star Trek, there is a person called Spock. So that Spock is given training. He has to do surgery on somebody. He's not a doctor. And that surgery has to be done in one day. Otherwise, that person is going to die. And there's no doctor on board. Or the doctor is Dr. McCoy, right? There was a doctor called McCoy, I think. So Dr. McCoy for somebody, oh yeah, Dr. McCoy himself is the doctor himself. There's only one doctor and the doctor is sick and he has to be operated upon. And somebody needs that knowledge. So they force that knowledge into this person, this specially made human being called Spock. But that person, it really is very painful. They pass electric impulses to program his neural networks in the brain. So it's so that is all science fiction anyway. But in general, it takes a lot of time. Same thing with self-knowledge. The reason it takes so much time, see, some people are able to gain knowledge very quickly. Some people are not able to gain knowledge very quickly. Why? What are some other things that impede your reception of knowledge?
Well, some people have diseases like dyslexia, which make it hard to learn.
Yeah, disease is one reason, but that is one extreme. But that's a good reason. What else?
Well, people say that if you don't, like, once you start learning something, it'll make it easier to learn. So, like, most part of learning anything from singing and dance to studies and maths and language arts is you have to kind of memorize it. And the only way to get a better memory is to keep on memorizing it. So the more you do it, the better you become. And then eventually you can do it.
So that is all small things. There is a very fundamental issue, root cause, that Lord Krishna said in one of the previous slokas that we covered.
You're not interested?
No, there is a sloka in which Krishna describes what impedes knowledge,
Goals.
what covers knowledge.
Have a goal or not.
Karmanyevadikaras.
No, that is goal. Yeah, karmanyavadikaras is goal. But there is another sloka in which he says that knowledge is eclipsed by something. Dhumena vriyate vahnihi
Fire.
yadadarsho malena cha yadolbena vruto garbha tadate medamavrutam.
Oh, just like the dust comes off the mirror in
Yeah.
5 or 10 minutes, the smoke comes off the fire
No, no,
very
no.
quickly, and then
Yeah, that is what we
it takes
talked
9
about.
months to take the baby out of the
That's
womb.
right. That's right. So
And
that
for
is our
knowledge, it takes a
interpretation.
long time.
That is our interpretation. But the literal meaning is, in this sloka, Lord Krishna does not say what covers what. I mean, what covers knowledge. But in the following sloka, he explains the sloka after that sloka, he tells what he means, what he refers to. And what he refers to is basically knowledge. And the other thing is which covers knowledge is, do you remember?
Ignorance or lust,
Yeah, you're close.
anger, greed.
Desire, yeah, lust, anger, greed, they all are forms of desire. So desire covers knowledge. So when somebody has strong desires, he is not able to gain the ultimate knowledge. In smaller terms, one of the forms of desire is ego. Why do you have a desire? It is because of your ego, right? When you have ego, learning becomes slow. You don't like to. Learning is basically surrendering.
And learning is the surrendering that the person you're getting taught from or the learning itself knows more than you do.
Yeah. So basically, you have to accept that there is somebody more well versed than you who is teaching you. And you are basically surrendering to that person to learn from that person. It may be person, it may be the situation, it may be whatever. But when that ego is there, you don't like to surrender. So some students say, what is this fellow? He talks about himself. He has so much experience. He has so many degrees. Why do I have to care? So some students have that kind of attitude. Such students will not be able to learn. You have to first accept that the source is higher than the receiver. Say a king has to be in a higher position in order to be able to give something to a beggar, right? If the beggar thinks that he is beyond the king, then how
Won't
can
accept it.
he won't accept it. So that is the reason why ego is a big blocker for gaining knowledge. People who have less ego are more receptive to knowledge.
How do we get rid of ego once we already have it?
There are ways. You have to practice. You have to keep on. Practice maketh the man perfect, right? Somebody said that. I forgot. Who was that?
Practice makes
Yeah, who said that? Mark Twain or something? One of the authors said that. So practice. You have to practice. So yeah, you have to let go of the ego, let go of the desire. For that, you have to practice, and it takes many lives. So ego is a very small form of desire, right? And that itself causes so much problem. The ultimate desire, the strong desires, are much more complicated. They block you from learning, getting the ultimate knowledge. That is the reason why you have to go through several life cycles to get rid of the ego and all those forms of desire. See, somebody has to, what is the ultimate qualification in this world? What is the highest degree that you can get in this world today?
You mean in world or outside?
in the world.
Oh,
the degree.
PhD?
Yeah, PhD. There's nothing beyond PhD, right?
Philosophers or doctor.
Yeah, Doctor of Philosophy. So to get PhD, it's a very humbling process.
It takes forever.
It takes forever, number one. And the other thing is you get rejected. You go, you present something, they don't like it. People don't like it. You send a paper for a journal. The first time you send it, it's going to be rejected, most likely. So you have to try it to different journals. Even if that first attempt succeeds, they are going to ask you to do a lot of revisions. So it is very humbling process, not humiliating, humbling process. That is the reason why if you read the books or articles written by researchers, PhDs and scholars, the articles are very humble. The language itself is they don't use superlatives, like they don't use very, they don't use super. Those kind of words are very limited, if at all used. So they're very humble. So one way to get rid of ego, because ego is the opposite of knowledge, right?
Yeah.
So to get rid of, you asked a very good question. How do you get rid of ego? One way to get rid of ego is to pursue knowledge, pursue PhD, right? And go in the path of knowledge. So that is one way to let go of desire, let go of ego, let go of all those forms of desire. So desire engulfs knowledge. Desire, just like the dirt engulfs mirror, just like the smoke engulfs the fire, desire engulfs the knowledge. Right? How many degrees did Gautama Buddha have to do to gain self-knowledge?
How many lives did he have to go through?
No, in the ultimate life, how many degrees did he have? Did he do a BA, BS, MA, MS?
Do they have all of those?
Even if they had, he did not do anything,
No.
right? He was born with the knowledge.
Because of the past life?
No, yeah, because of the past life. And we are all born with the knowledge of the self. The ultimate knowledge is within us.
Because when we're born, we're literally like just cleansed
Yeah,
from all of that.
that's right. So the knowledge is within us, but we are not able to realize that knowledge because of the desire inside us. The desire is engulfing the knowledge inside us, right? So when you onion peel the desire, just like onion peeling, right? You peel after peel. So just like that, the knowledge is covered by lots of these peels of desire. Yeah, lust, anger, greed, ego, hatred, attachment. All these are forms of desire. Many layers. So when you peel off all those layers, that is exactly what Gautama Buddha did. He peeled off all the layers and finally arrived at the ultimate knowledge, which was already inside him. So, so the knowledge is already there within you. You have to realize that. There are multiple ways of realizing it. One way is to pursue external knowledge, right? Keep on pursuing knowledge. When you pursue knowledge, when you're open to anything that is good, then your ego will automatically come down, because otherwise you cannot absorb that knowledge, right? So by absorbing the knowledge, you automatically reduce the ego. So ignorance is basically darkness, right? Just like, see what happens in ignorance. I think in one of the previous slokas also we covered this, right? Ignorance is darkness. What sloka was that? Sammohat Smriti Vibramaha, Smriti Bramsha. No, that is something else. Yes. In one other sloka, we covered this concept, or maybe it was our own interpretation. But definitely it is in one of the slokas that ignorance is darkness. Why is ignorance darkness? So what do you do in dark? If you have to find something, if you want to find your path in darkness, what do you do?
Well, you can't find it very well.
You can't find it very well. And then what else happens?
Well, normally you look for some light to find it. So,
Yeah.
but if you're trying to ignore something, you try not to see it. So then you turn off the light so you can't see it. Is that how ignorance is darkness?
So just like you, what do you call that word? What is the word? You struggle for finding your path. What is the word? Like, just like in darkness, you struggle to find your path. Same thing in ignorance. Suppose you don't have the knowledge of something. Suppose you have to, your cell phone is bad, is not working, and you don't have the knowledge. What do? You do all sorts of things. You try this, you try that, you struggle.
Until you humble yourself and go to the
Yeah.
repair.
Same thing with ignorance, or rather, same thing with darkness. You stumble, you fall, you in your goal, in your attempts to find the goal. You stumble, you fall, you do all sorts of things, right? Same thing in ignorance. Without knowledge, you stumble, you fall, you grope for the right path, right? So that is the reason why ignorance is darkness, and knowledge, the supreme knowledge particularly, is like the sun which dispels ignorance. Is there any iota, any small quantity of ignorance in light?
No,
Absolutely nothing, right?
it's either lightness or dark.
It's either lightness or darkness. Same thing with knowledge, ultimate knowledge. Once you attain that ultimate knowledge, there is no ignorance, there is no desire, there is no ego, there is no greed, there's no complexes. Right? That's what happened to Buddha. When he realized the ultimate supreme knowledge, all ignorance got dispelled. For that, he had to take many births.
What
And
if in our next few births, what if we're not people? Then how can we practice these things?
so we saw in Jataka tales that Gautama Buddha's took,
Must not always.
yeah, it was not always a human life, right? So he took birth as a deer and all sorts of things. So they also have similar feelings. They also have thoughts. See, we don't, I mean, just because we don't understand them, we think that they're dumb. But they are very intelligent. Other species are also very intelligent. You take butterflies. We saw that movie, right? There was a movie, IMAX movie, where butterflies are, what are they? Birds or butterflies, I don't remember, but they migrate from one place to the other. They know where to migrate.
South or north.
Yeah, south or north, they find their way, they're able to migrate. What does it tell you?
They know.
They already know they're
Yeah, they know. See, for us, we have airplanes, we have so many things to find out about other places. Birds, they don't have any instruments, they don't have any tools, but they're able to depend on their instincts and navigate their way to the exact place where they want to go. Birds or butterflies, I don't exactly know. Was it butterflies?
I think it was birds.
Yeah.
Birds, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So So they are intelligent too. They have mind. Just because we don't understand them, they're not as strong as we are. We tend to underestimate them, but they have all the uh, feelings and everything. Even the trees, the plants. Who is he? Jagadish Bose, right? The Nobel Prize winner. He proved that plants have life. He used,
Underneath.
yeah. You talk nicely to the plants, they grow nice.
If you play music,
Yes.
they grow.
If you play music, they grow nicely. It has been proven. So every life, there is a pathway to the God. Every life can practice path to God. So just that we have to be in that path. We have to practice. Simply knowing is not enough. It has to be imbibed. You said, what is the word you said? Sink in, right? It has to sink in. And for it to sink in, you have to practice. So today you learned the word enna pesra. So you have to practice it tomorrow, day after, 10 days later, 10 years later, then it becomes imbibed into you.
And
So
then,
practice.
and also, I realized like when we're learning songs and sangeetam or dances, when you first learn it and you practice it, then it gets imbibed, and then we forget about it for a month, and then if we come back later, sometimes we don't remember it, even though it sank in then. So we have to keep practicing it, or even something that has sink in can go out, can't it?
Yeah. Just practicing once is not enough most of the time. That's what I was saying, right? You practice, you say enna pesra tomorrow, you say enna pesra 10 days, after 10 days. You have to say enna pesra after 10 years. Otherwise, it slowly goes into the oblivion. It will fade, right? So practice is very important. Practicing the knowledge. It is not enough if you just um, know. See, you know that sorrow is bad for you. Sorrow is not the path to God, right? We all know that, or no?
Yeah.
So a simple thing to do is next time when you feel sorrow, sad, remind yourself that this is not the way God expects us to be. We should not be sorrow. We should not feel sad. Sorrow is bad for us. So remind yourself again and again and again, 5 times, 10 times, then 11th time, sorrowness will not even come to you. Right? So practice is very important. Similarly, ego. So whenever you feel, why should this fellow tell me? Is he some great guy, or why should she tell me, or this lady tell me? When you think like that, remind yourself, see, I'm raking up my ego. So just accept. So for instance, I mean, typically students do this when the homework is very tough, right? When their homework is very tough, why is this lady giving me all this tough homework? That is at least a little better. What they start doing is instead they start finding fault with the teacher. Oh, she didn't teach like that. She didn't try to teach like this. She said that. And she keeps on repeating the same thing again and again. And she keeps pinpointing. And she does that. And she does this. That is not a result of your feelings. Or rather, it is not a result of direct impact from those acts. It is indirect reaction. Because the homework is troubling you, you are trying to find fault with the other person. Right? That is what is happening. And that is because of ego. If there is no ego, you simply accept it. Okay, teacher gave this homework. It is for my own benefit that if I do this homework, I'll be better qualified. See, these days degrees have no value, right? You're competing with
PhDs and
yeah, there are PhDs, there's people without any degrees who are senior managers, who are directors, who are vice presidents, and so on and so forth, right? There are some companies founded like Bill Gates.
he didn't even finish high school.
Yeah, he's a school dropout. And millions, thousands of people would have worked for him.
He's a millionaire.
He's a billionaire, right? He was one of the richest persons in the world one time. So you have to realize that degrees don't count. What counts is knowledge. What counts is hard work. What counts is how you deliver. So finding fault with the teacher, you can escape. But it will not really solve the problem. It is not a solution to any problem. Some students say, at the end of the class, when you go to college, you will know this. At the end of the class, the students evaluate the teacher. They say, I'm going to tear the professor apart in my reviews of him. I mean, anyone who reads the report will understand. See, students most often do not know, or young people do not know what is good for them. Right? That is the reason why, yeah. There are many examples, right? So that is the reason why you are given a teacher, you have parents to guide you, you have a lot of people to tell you and guide you in the right path. So if the ego comes in the way and you think, oh, why should I listen to this person? Then your learning stops. And you are the one who is going to suffer eventually. And the people associating themselves with you also will suffer. So probably your kids, probably your spouse, your parents, everyone suffers because of the ignorance, right? So that is the reason why we should set aside ego. So practice all these things. Whenever you feel like finding fault with others, try to think, is it because of ego or is it because it's really a problem with the other person? Can I do well even if these problems are there with the other person? Think like that. This other person is bad, okay. But can I still do my best and improve myself even when the other person is like this? Now the teacher puts people on the spot, right? And many students don't like it. Right? Suppose, I mean, most teachers don't do that, but if at all, when I was young, we were indiscriminately put on spot. Our teacher used to pick up on anyone they like. It was norm. We used to respect teachers like gods. Parents, Guru Brahma, what is the other one? Pitru Devo.
Matu Devo,
Yeah.
Baba Acharya Devo.
Acharya Devo Bhava, right? So we used to respect, those days we used to respect all these people, the givers of knowledge, as God. So we never questioned them. But today there are so many laws and regulations and 911s. Was it? Yeah, one of the teachers was telling, right? I think it was in your own school or something. That a student wanted to call 911 on the teacher. So it depends. I mean, so that is the unfortunate happenings today. But in our days, teachers were gods, literally gods. So, pinpointing or putting someone on the spot is completely out of the norm today, but some teachers still do it and students don't like it.
Especially if they don't know the answer.
Yeah, so instead of complaining to the principal, putting it in the report, survey report, feedback on the teacher, or finding fault with the teacher for putting you on the spot, think, is it is it because of ego or is it really a problem? Suppose somebody puts you on spot. What is the problem? If you already know the subject well, if you are diligent with your studies,
Then you'd
Then
be
you would
happy.
know.
you'll be happy. Exactly.
That you can show off what you
Yeah, you can show off what you have. So where is the problem? Is the problem with the teacher or is the problem with the student?
with the student.
With the student, right?
That's correct.
But in today's world, it is projected as a problem with the teacher. It is very unfortunate, but that's how the world is changing. So that's okay, that's fine. See, we don't want to find fault with the world also, right? That's okay. We are going to take it as it comes. But so whenever you try to find fault with others, think if it is really a problem to you which is impeding your progress, or is it because of your ego or because of your laziness or any form of desire? That desire can show up in many ways. Is it because of the desire that you're behaving, you're finding fault with others?
But what if it isn't because of that desire? What if it actually is because the person is bad?
Then you have a duty to correct. Then yes, but you have to develop that now. See, ego is a Maya. Lord Krishna says that it is Maya. In Bhagavad Gita, we are going to cover those slokas later, but Lord Krishna says that this whole thing is a Maya. This ego, this desire, all these things are Maya. They are illusions. So when you're illusioned, you don't realize what you are in. So suppose you go to zoo. Is there any characteristic in using your five senses? Is there any specific thing that you feel with your five senses that is very characteristic of a zoo?
It's normally very noisy.
Noisy.
So, and your eyes are the ones that
Okay,
do
eyes.
most. So
Eyes. Suppose you go close to a den of monkeys, or rather, den of lions, or monkeys.
then they'll smell like meat.
Right, smell. Right?
Yeah.
Now, suppose, does the lion sense the smell? The lion in the den, do you think it smells the same smell, gets the same smell?
You can't smell yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is the Maya. Maya is just like that. You cannot know that ego is covering you. That is a Maya. If you can recognize that, then you are in the path of knowledge. When you're able to recognize that, hey, what am I doing? I'm finding fault with the others, whereas the fault is with me. If I am diligent, if I am hardworking, if I am studying well, it is not a problem if the teacher puts me on spot. When you are able to think like that, you're on the path of knowledge.
Like a counter spell almost.
Yeah. But how many children will think like that? Did you ever come across a child who thinks like this?
No.
See?
No one ever thinks they're bad.
Yeah. Everyone thinks that the teacher is bad because the teacher puts the students on spot.
And they also think the parents are bad.
Yeah, they also some kids think that the parents are also bad. So when you're why does it happen? It is because of Maya, God's Maya. This ego, the desire, it's Maya. You do not know when you're under the influence of something. That is the reason why they say that substance abuse is really bad. Why? Because you're under the influence of substances. It could be drinking, it could be drugs, whatever it is. Even painkillers are bad. See, just a few days back, many states in the United States of America settled a case with drug manufacturers like Johnson and Johnson and all, to the tune of some billions of dollars, because of use of a drug which was addictive. painkillers, NSAID. There is a drug called, it is usually in the painkillers. It was causing people to become addicted to that drug. It's a medicine, but people were becoming, so the governments took up the case of the people and sued these drug companies, saying that people are getting impacted, people are becoming addicted. When they are addicted, they are under the influence of the drugs. It is like Maya. They're not able to perform well. It's ruining lives and sometimes causing deaths also. So they've sued the drug companies, and the drug companies agreed to pay billions of dollars. I don't remember the exact figure. Very few drug companies, not many. And Johnson & Johnson was one of them, I think.
Johnson and Johnson is such a good company.
Yeah,
It's a
see?
huge company.
Yeah. If I remember correctly. That's how I remember. But so being under the influence of something is really bad. So this ego is also an influence on you, which prevents you from realizing yourself, right? So the day you realize that you are acting because of desire, because of ego, you're on the path, you're on the right path to God. And it is difficult. Why is it difficult? Because you did not come across any person who thinks like that, right? That itself shows that it is a difficult thing to do. So anytime you find fault with others, think if there is a problem with you. See, there is a saying in India, right? In native language, Indian language, they say that you point one finger at others, three fingers point at you.
Yeah, okay.
So see the three fingers. If you're able to see the three fingers pointing at you, then you're giving up ego. You're giving up, you're surrendering to what is good, what is God. So for that, you need to take multiple births. That is what happened in the case of Gautama Buddha. See, he proved, Krishna said, Krishna gave us a theory, Buddha gave us the practice. Right? So we have no excuse today to say that we cannot pursue the path of God, because we have the theory from Lord Krishna in the Dwapara Yuga, and we have the practice from the Kali Yuga, from Gautama Buddha. So we know both. See, in most of the universities, right, they teach concepts. They don't teach programming languages. Programming languages are expected, of course, basic undergrad classes will teach programming, but programming is supposed to be learned by the students themselves. Practice. So without practice, concepts don't help. Like we taught, right? When does knowledge become imbibed into you? When you practice. So you have to practice for multiple days, multiple years, multiple lives. Then you will attain the supreme knowledge of God. And when that happens, you are like the sun, God. So there's no darkness inside you, just like there's no darkness inside sun. Right? It's all light. Where there is light, there's no darkness. So until that happens, you have to practice. It is very important. Unfortunately, today people are going backwards from all the gains that we had in the past. See, Buddha showed us such a great path. So instead of following that path, some people are still following, no doubt about it. But a lot of people are regressing from that path. They are going backwards. The laws, the governance is also to some extent going backwards. So I wrote an op-ed yesterday,
What's
Op-ed?
that?
an editorial. Somebody invited me to write an editorial. I hope it will get published soon.
An editorial like a book,
Yeah, no, in the newspapers.
That's cool.
an article.
Yeah, an article. So that's what I said. See, governments have a responsibility to make sure that we do not regress, to uphold the values, human values. So just like the governments try to uphold the values of the currency, right? They don't want the dollar to fall down, lose its value. Every government tries to do its best to make sure that the value of their currency does not fall down. So that is just a very small aspect. The most important aspect is human values. What about your human values? You should make sure that you do not regress. We have made such a great progress and we cannot regress. Right? So, Bhagavad Gita, so you want to talk about machine learning or you want to talk about more about Bhagavad Gita?
More about Bhagavad Gita.
Okay, then let us look at the next slide. So this I compiled, there's somebody compiled this nicely. I don't remember who and where I got it from, but so for every problem, there is a solution in Bhagavad Gita. Actually, Mahabharata, Ramayana, I used to find solutions in Ramayana. I started with Bhagavad Gita. So I had major trouble in my adolescent age. See, adolescent age, you're not yet in that age.
What's
Right.
adolescent?
Adolescent is your teenage. Teenage is very confusing because you don't understand, you are trying to understand. See, you're in between adulthood and the childhood.
So it's all new.
It's all new. You get depressed, you feel bad about things, particularly if you're sensitive. So things like that. So that is when I discovered my first problem in my adolescent age. So that is when, like when I was 13, 14, I believe. That is when I started reading Bhagavad Gita more seriously. Right? Until then, my dad used to just explain and things like that. But the real need I felt in my teens, the adolescent age. So I started finding solutions to my problems in Bhagavad Gita. It helped, but my knowledge was not enough. My ignorance was more than the knowledge because I was still a teenager. I could not fully realize the benefits of Bhagavad Gita then. So then I resorted to Ramayana. I used to think, what would Rama do in this kind of situation? What would Lord Rama have done in my situation? So I used to relate to Ramayana a lot. So Ramayana provided many more solutions to than Bhagavad Gita in my teenage. Why? Because Ramayana is much more easier to understand than Bhagavad Gita.
And
Yeah.
most of Rama's story.
It is just a
happened when he
story.
was-
It is told as a story. You can easily relate to it. You can easily remember it. You can easily keep recalling it.
It's like a story, like Cinderella.
Yeah, it's like a story. Bhagavad Gita is also one of the reasons it's Gita is so that you can remember when you see songs. Do you memorize?
Yeah, a lot quicker. Well, not memorize, but like we remember the lyrics.
Yeah, you remember the lyrics even though you don't memorize. Why?
Because of the rhythm.
Because of the rhythm, the angas, Vedangas, right? We talked about Vedangas, right? One of that is the pronunciation, the rhythm,
Chanda.
Chandaha, Chandasu. So, yeah, Bhagavad Gita is a Gita. It has to be sung like a song, but some people have attempted it, thankfully, and have made it easy to recite it as a song, but it is not very popular, unfortunately. So maybe you can attempt it. You can recite, you can discover the true rhythm of Bhagavad Gita and recite the entire Bhagavad Gita as a song. So that might be a good exercise.
To try to make up a rhythm for it.
Yeah, rhythm first in ways which people can easily remember. So that will be a very great contribution to the world. Right?
So that's kind of like why people make songs to remember things.
Yeah. So so that is one way to help people learn Bhagavad Gita. The other way is to have these kind of talks. See, I used to, in my teenage, right, I used to just to understand, my dad, of course, used to explain me, but still, I wanted more and more information. I wanted more and more interpretations of the Bhagavad Gita. So I used to go to Ramakrishna Mutt. Near my home, there used to be a Ramakrishna Mutt. We talked about Ramakrishna, right? Swami Vivekananda, Ramakrishna. So I used to go to that mutt, and where people used to give discourses. Just like this, they used to take one sloka and go on interpreting that sloka for an hour. Right?
Would other people be able to contribute?
Yeah, they can ask questions and things like that. But only the gurus sit and then give the, because any person may want to give that kind of discourse, but what if that person's knowledge is not good enough? Suppose you ask a teenager will be very anxious, very eager to give a discourse on Bhagavad Gita. For instance, if somebody asks me to give a discourse on Bhagavad Gita when I was, say, 17 or 18, I would have loved to do that. But will I be doing a good thing? No, I don't think so, because my knowledge is not mature. So only when the knowledge is mature can you give discourses. That is why they wouldn't allow others to do that, but they would allow others to ask questions. So Bhagavad Gita is your resource for finding solutions, just like the Ramayana and Mahabharata are. So for instance, you are very angry, then these are the slokas that you would resort to. You would try to find deeper meaning to get over your anger. So these are all forms of desire. Anger, confusion, dealing with envy, death of loved one, depression, discriminated, fear, feeling sinful. These are all common feelings, and these are all forms of desire. If you are feeling any of these, it means your knowledge is not complete. So you have a long way to go. So when you feel these things, these are the slokas. So for instance, anger. We already covered this sloka, I believe. Where is that? So this is the PDF. Oh, this is from what is that? ISKCON.
Bhagavad Gita as it is.
Yeah.
Swami Prabhupada.
Swami Prabhupada. So this is what they put together. So losing hope, greed, laziness, loneliness.
When does Arjuna feel laziness?
I mean, the whole Bhagavad Gita is because of it's not directly lazy, but he didn't want to do his duty. The reasons may be different. It is not the common laziness that we associate with, but it is one kind of laziness. It is one kind of desire. So the whole Bhagavad Gita is because of that. So anger, say, just click on this. And then it takes you to this nice website, that is ISKCON website, I think. Yeah. Dukesh Svanudvignamana Sukesha Vigata Spruhaha Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha Tidadhi Muni Uchyate.
We learned that one.
Yeah. So most of the slokas on this slide or on this in this document, we already learned. So one who is not disturbed in mind, even amidst the threefold miseries or elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger is called a stage of steady mind.
Like threefold miseries, kama, krodha, and
Threefold miseries, yeah, actually the kama, krodha, mada are actually 8 in number. So threefold,
Vita, Raga, Bhaya, Krodha.
yeah, Vita, Raga, Bhaya, Krodha. Yeah, good observation. So Raga, Bhaya, Krodha, those are the three. Vita means without. So Raga is attachment, Bhaya is fear, Krodha is anger. These are the threefold miseries.
Is kama also attachment? Or is it
Yeah, Kama is one form of attachment. So see, when you read this sloka and try to understand the deeper meaning of this sloka, you'll realize that anger is just a maya, it's an illusion that you have to come out of. Right? So that is the reason why we study Bhagavad Gita. Yeah, similarly, this sloka. So 62. Jayato Vishayan Pumsah Sangaste Sangat Sanjayate Kamaha Kamat Krodho Bijayate.
We learned that one too.
Yeah. See, most of the important slokas we are covering. So when you're angry, just remind yourself of this sloka. Then you will no longer be angry. Right? So we'll cover more of this later. I think we are on top of the hour. So let us conclude with our regular prayer. Any questions? Okay, let us conclude with the prayer. Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amrutangamaya Om Shanti 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 Sarve Jana Sukhino Bhavantu Samasta Sanmangalani Santu. See you next week.